With the general election just one day away, eyes are on which party will secure the parliamentary majority, which could greatly impact the roles that affect the lives of people in Korea. The hopefuls are busy making their final appeals to voters. A dispute looks to be emerging within the medical community, seeking a unified voice for dialogue with the government amid the prolonged standoff over the medical school quota expansion. In the meantime, more medical schools resume classes as they cannot delay the academic schedule further. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says a date has been set for an invasion of Rafah in southern Gaza, in what looks to be a direct opposition to reported progress in recent truce talks between Israel and Hamas. It's April 9th, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. There's just one day left before voters in Korea go to polls to decide a new 300-member National Assembly. It's a crucial election that could greatly impact rules that affect the lives of people in the country. Shin Ha-young starts us off.
After about 2 weeks of competitive election campaigns, all that remains is the people's choice. The April election comes almost 2 years after conservative President Yoon Suk-yeol's victory in the 2022 presidential election, where he narrowly defeated Democratic Party's candidate Lee Jae-myung by a margin of 0.73%, the smallest margin in South Korean history. For this year's election, the number of seats for elected lawmakers has increased to 254 from 253, with one seat taken from the proportional representation bloc, which dropped to 46 from 47, keeping the total number of lawmakers at the National Assembly at 300. Winning at least 150 of the 300 seats grants the party the power to pass budget bills and various laws. Any party that secures 3/5 or more of the National Assembly members, meaning 180 seats or more, will have strong legislative power, including the ability to fast-track bills. In the 2020 general election, the DP and its satellite party won 180 seats, resulting in a minority government with the Yoon administration taking office. Obtaining over 2/3, which is at least 200 National Assembly seats, further strengthens authority, allowing for constitutional amendments, dismissal of legislators, and even the ability to initiate presidential impeachment. As the Yoon administration enters its third year in office, the DP is determined to maintain its dominance to act as a counterbalance to the ruling party and the Yoon administration. For the ruling People Power Party, this year's race is considered crucial because failing to secure a majority could potentially render President Yoon Suk-yeol a lame duck for the remainder of his term. Meanwhile, according to the National Election Commission, the turnout for early voting reached 31.28%, a new record in the history of general elections in South Korea. The PPP attributed the strong turnout to people's judgment toward the main opposition party, while the DP viewed it as a sign of strong public sentiment against the government. Eyes are now on how the April election will reshape the political landscape for the next 4 years, including the remainder of the Yoon administration's term. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
And while we await the results of the 22nd parliamentary election that kicks off tomorrow, in this next report, our Pei-Eun-ji touches upon some of the interesting factors of this latest race based on figures.
The general election is South Korea's biggest political event this year. You might be wondering how it works and what's different in 2024. Let's take a look at the election by the numbers. The voting age in South Korea is 18 after the country lowered the age limit from 19 in December 2019. Citizens born before April 11, 2006 are eligible to vote in this year's general election. This means more than 44 million Koreans will be heading to almost 15,000 polling stations across the country that'll be open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. There, voters will receive 2 ballot papers. One is to vote for a candidate running for their constituency, and the other is to vote for the party they support for proportional representation seats. This year, the ballot papers for proportional representation seats are the longest ever used in Korea. It's 51.7 centimeters long, as 38 parties have registered to battle over these seats. This is even longer than the last election in 2020, when the ballot paper was over 48 centimeters long, with 35 parties running. Before that, in 2016 and in 2012, the papers were about 30 centimeters. Just as in the 2020 election, the votes will have to be counted by hand, as electronic counters cannot read papers this long. Moving on to the candidates running for individual districts, the average competition rate stands at around 2.8 to 1 this year, the lowest in 39 years. In 2020, the rate was 4.4 to 1. Of the 699 candidates that have registered in 254 districts nationwide, 86% are men, leaving women as an unrepresentative minority. The average age of the candidates is 56.8, 2 years older than in 2020. Those in their 50s took up nearly half of the candidates, followed by those in their 60s and 40s. The youngest candidate is 28 years old, whereas the oldest is 85, born in 1938. By job, 65% of the candidates were professional politicians, 8% were attorneys, and 5% were professors or educators. Doctors and pharmacists accounted for about 1% of the total. The vote count for this year's election is expected to take about 2 more hours than usual and will likely have the final results at around 2 a.m. the next day.
South Korea's second military reconnaissance satellite launched on Monday has successfully communicated with the country's ground station. The Defense Ministry said Tuesday that the satellite, currently in orbit, made contact at 5:53 p.m. on Monday after it was launched from a space center in Florida on Monday morning Korea time. Although it is Korea's second reconnaissance satellite, it's the country's first star type. It's expected to boost the military's surveillance of North Korea, as star satellites can capture images day or night, regardless of weather conditions. President Yoon on Tuesday asked the country's Coast Guard to continue taking stern action against illegal fishing by Chinese boats to safeguard maritime security. The president boarded a patrol ship off the coast of Incheon to hear about how the Coast Guard is cracking down on illegal fishing, particularly Chinese boats, in West Sea waters under South Korea's jurisdiction during spring crabbing season. Yoon said the issue must be addressed from the perspective of protecting South Korea's fisheries resources. He noted that even North Korea, which is militarily aligned with China, also cracks down on illegal fishing by Chinese fishing boats. The president last month ordered strong response measures after hearing a personal appeal from a Korean fisherman at a public policy discussion. This prompted a week-long special crackdown that seized 5 illegal Chinese boats, and 36 vessels were evicted from Korean waters. On to the medical school quota expansion issue. A dispute looks to be emerging within the medical community, seeking a unified voice for dialogue with the government. In the meantime, more medical schools have resumed classes. Yi has more.
Amidst the ongoing dispute between the government and the medical community, another wave of conflicting voices has emerged. On Sunday, the Korean Medical Association's Emergency Committee described last week's meeting with President Yoon as a meaningful encounter. The committee also announced that the Korea Medical Association, professors, trainee doctors, and medical students will speak with a collective voice from now on and will be holding a joint press conference later this week. However, on Monday, Park Dan, the head of the Korean Intern Resident Association, emphasized via social media that no such agreement has been reached. Also, the next head of the KMA, Lee Myung-taek, whose term is set to begin next month, has stepped forward, expressing his intention to take up the position earlier than planned. This comes as the result of contrasting views when it comes to the medical school quota expansion, as Im is known for his strong stance against the government. Currently, the Korea Medical Association is operating under the leadership of the Emergency Response Committee. With the medical community divided, dialogue between the government and the medical community could become more challenging. The government, still highlighting the need to increase the medical school quota by 2,000 places, remains open to discussions about alternative solutions supported by scientific evidence and logical reasoning. Meanwhile, as of Tuesday, the Ministry of Education confirmed that 16 out of the 40 medical schools nationwide have started classes. Additionally, the majority of the remaining 24 schools are also planning to begin classes within this month. Based on the regulation that requires at least 30 weeks of lectures annually, the universities said they could not delay the academic schedule any farther. However, the attendance of medical students who have applied for leaves of absence remains uncertain, comprising 55% of enrolled students, while practical classes for third and fourth year students, mostly held offline, still face challenges. Yoon, Arirang News.
Israel says a date has been set for its ground offensive in the city of Rafah in southern Gaza. This looks to be a direct opposition to reported progress in recent truce talks between Israel and Hamas. Park Go-no explains.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday local time that a date has been set for an invasion of Rafah, where around 1.5 million displaced Palestinians are sheltering.
Today, I received a detailed report on the talks in Cairo. We are constantly working to achieve our goals. First and foremost, the release of all our hostages and achieving a complete victory over Hamas. This victory requires entry into Rafah and the elimination of the terrorist battalions there. It will happen. There is a date.
Though Netanyahu's statement did not have a specific date, his remarks appear to directly oppose reports that truce talks had seen progress. And as the U.S. said that it wasn't seeing any signs of massive operations or rearranging of troops by Israel, and as a recent withdrawal was made from southern Gaza, some predict that Netanyahu's recent statement about the ground offensive was not his actual intention. This comes after the U.S. delivered new negotiations proposals to both Israel and Hamas in truce talks in Cairo over the weekend. The talks proposed by CIA Director Bill Burns included trading 40 Israeli hostages for 900 Palestinian prisoners and allowing refugees in the southern city of Gaza to return to the north without any restrictions. Both Israel and Hamas are reported to agree on reviewing the proposal. But Israel is reported to be especially against Gazans returning north, as it could raise possibilities for the survival of Hamas. And a Hamas official said early Tuesday that the latest ceasefire deal proposed by Israel and delivered by Egyptian, Qatari, and American mediators was not agreeable, but said they would review the proposal and respond later on. As of Monday, over 33,000 Palestinians have been killed and nearly 76,000 wounded, while the death toll for Israel has reached 1,139, with dozens still held captive since the war started October 7th. Park Go-no, Arirang News.
As gang violence continues in Haiti, 11 South Korean citizens have been evacuated from the Caribbean nation. The Foreign Ministry said on Tuesday that the South Korean nationals were airlifted to the neighboring Dominican Republic via helicopter the day before. It added that there are currently around 60 South Koreans still in Haiti and that the government has been checking on their safety with an emergency helpline. Last month, the South Korean government evacuated 2 citizens from Haiti as the security situation worsened. The island nation has seen political instability and poverty since the assassination of the then president, Jovenel Moïse, in 2021. Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company will reportedly make its most advanced chips in the U.S. state of Arizona, having secured a substantial subsidy pledge from the U.S. This as the Biden administration continues its efforts to shift global chip production into North America. Shin Se-byuk has this report.
The U.S. Department of Commerce announced on Monday a significant subsidy of $6.6 billion to support the Taiwanese chipmaker TSMC. This move aligns with the 2022 CHIPS Act, a flagship policy of U.S. President Joe Biden, aimed at reshoring semiconductor supply chains to the U.S. after a decades-long shift to Asia. The latest announcement exceeds initial estimates by more than 30% from an expected $5 billion. In addition, the initiative includes up to $5 billion in low-interest government loans, bringing the total support to $11.6 billion. Monday's announcement came as TSMC outlined plans to increase its investment in the U.S. from $25 billion to $65 billion and to establish a third factory in Phoenix, Arizona by 2030. This expansion represents the largest foreign direct investment in U.S. history, highlighting TSMC's commitment to growing its U.S. operations. The Commerce Department expects TSMC's U.S. investment to create a significant economic impact by generating about 6,000 manufacturing jobs and 20,000 construction jobs. President Biden, in a statement on Monday, underscored the critical need for this initiative, noting Washington's vulnerability due to its inability to manufacture the most sophisticated semiconductors. He also emphasized that the CHIPS Act positions the U.S. to account for approximately 20% of global production of cutting-edge chips by 2030. Last month, the U.S. government unveiled a nearly $20 billion support package for the American chipmaker Intel. Attention now shifts to Samsung Electronics, with expectations over an announcement related to a subsidy for the South Korean chipmaker next week. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
There has been a significant demographic development here on the local front. The number of one-person households has surpassed 10 million, accounting for over 40% of Korea's total households. Lee Seung-jae has more.
According to data from the Ministry of Interior and Safety on Tuesday, the number of single-person households in South Korea stood at 10,021,413 as of March this year, marking the first time the figure has reached the 10 million mark. That's compared to 9,981,702 single-person households the previous month. Among the over 24 million households nationwide, single-person households make up 41.8%, or 2 out of 5. By age group, those in their 60s make up the highest proportion of people living in single-person households at over 1.86 million, followed by those in their 30s at over 1.68 million, and those in their 50s at over 1.64 million. People in their 70s and above accounted for over 1.98 million. By region, Gyeonggi-do Province and Seoul had the highest proportion of single-person households. There were also more men living alone than women. The number of smaller-size households, which consists of one- and two-person households, is increasing, while the number of larger households is decreasing. While the number of two-person households also increased slightly in March, the number of four-person households decreased from over 3.12 million households to around 3.11 million. The government believes that the proportion of single-person households is increasing due to the higher number of seniors living alone and the rise in unmarried people. It says it will continue to explore various policies centered on single-person households. In particular, the government is exploring policies related to rising food prices and stable housing as its top priority. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Staying with statistics, the number of female workers here in Korea hit a record high last year. Data from Statistics Korea on Tuesday showed the number of female salary workers standing at nearly 10 million in 2023, up more than 280,000 on year. Women workers accounted for a record 45.7% of the nation's paid workforce last year. On the cultural front, the reputation of Korean books and authors has been growing globally. Especially this year, Korean children's book authors have been shining at Italy's major book fair. Our Choi Soo-hyung tells the story.
Recently, the international reputation of Korean books and authors has been growing. In Italy, at the Bologna Children's Book Fair 2024, the largest children's book exhibition in the world, many Korean children's book authors are invited to show their works to the world. The Culture Ministry in South Korea has doubled the Korean author exhibition space at the fair compared to last year. So, 18 Korean children's book authors can meet overseas readers and publishing companies in person to promote their work. At this year's Bologna Book Fair, Korean picture book author Kim Ji-an, who won the Bologna Ragazzi Award Comics for Early Readers with As You Drive, shared her thoughts about the pure joy to be found in her book.
Regardless of the situation, we should be able to run with joy as our engine and fuel, and the ones who understand this joy the best are the child readers. We adults should help continue building a society where children can experience joy.
For 40 years, the Korean children's book author Lee Ge-mi has been comforting children and teenagers with numerous books.
Children's life experiences like school may be different by country, but feelings of joy and sorrow and challenges are universally shared. I hope my work can bring them some comfort and give children some faith in humanity and hope for the world.
The 62-year-old was listed among the final 6 nominees for the Hans Christian Andersen Award, the highest award in children's literature. The award, presented every 2 years since 1956 by the International Board on Books for Young People, evaluates the lifetime achievements of children's book authors worldwide. The announcement was made on Monday local time at the fair. Even though Austrian author Heinz Janisch won the award, Yi said she was proud of being a finalist.
It's an honor that judges showed interest in Korean literature for children. I hope this sparks more awareness of Korean children's books worldwide. I feel proud to be able to take a small part in spreading awareness.
The government plans to strengthen the global expansion of K-picture books through appropriate local support initiative. The Bologna Children's Book Fair 2024 will run until April 11th. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Warm spring weather continues. Temperatures all day today were higher than they were at the same point in previous years. Tomorrow, which is election day, will be very similar to today. You only need to keep in mind the huge daily temperature differences, both in the morning and in the evening. While dry weather warnings have been issued in the Seoul metropolitan area and some parts of Chungcheongbuk-do province, dry weather continues in central inland areas as well, so please take extra precautions with wildfires. Tomorrow, the whole country will be mostly sunny, but it will gradually get cloudy. Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju, and Busan will start off at 8 degrees Celsius. Daily highs will move up to 19 in Seoul and Chuncheon, Gyeongju and Jeju, 18 degrees. Rain is expected in northern Gyeonggi-do province and Yeongseok, Gangwon-do province on Thursday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.